Today we're firing the kiln again, and we're going to be trying out some human hair. Sounds a little gross, but wait and see. So I'm just going to make a bunch of pieces and not focus on these. I made some booties, I made some candle holders, a face, and a bunch of pots. So just come along with me on a pot firing day. We are going to do a bisque in this kiln and then followed by a glaze firing because I don't have a regular kiln that works right now. So check out our kiln build video if you want to see how this kiln works. You can do a bisque fire and then a glaze fire for Raku in this kiln. Again, just with Raku clay, the temperature swings don't treat regular clay well. So get a clay that behaves well with wild temperature swings. I recently found some kiln posts on Facebook Marketplace, and with the kiln shelves that I have, it's significantly easier to get these stacked than with the broken pottery that I was using previously. Kiln posts for the win. So this is load one of the pots. These are all bone dry, and I actually like to throw them in my dehydrator. I have a rather large dehydrator in the house that I use for cooking and kitchen, gardening and whatnot. But I really love to throw my pottery in there kind of for 24 hours before I fire it, just to make sure that all of that moisture is just blasted out of there. So I just set it at the max temperature, which is like 165, and I just run it for overnight before the kiln firing, and I've had significantly better luck at not having pieces kind of blow up and crack on me. Especially in San Antonio in the winter, it's been rainy for weeks, so the humidity in the air, it's just really nice to be able to blast the moisture out of it. And of course, I'm setting up my little cones here. You'll see later they didn't fully bend, and I'm not sure if that's because I got the sticks rather than the cones or because of how I'm using it, but the clay did fully fire in the bisque. It tinks nicely, it makes that beautiful ringing sound, so it did fully fire. The cones just didn't bend, so maybe I just need a different cone setting because that's where my clay is. I don't know. So I like to start by having the flame just barely on and just barely in the kiln. Even though I have dried these really well in the dehydrator, I like to get those first 500 degrees nice and slow. I don't want it to warm up too quick because after 500 degrees you're pretty safe not having any moisture in there. So the ramp up can go a little bit faster. And of course, I have my little assistants here with me today. This is Bugsy, and we're just going to check on things, make sure that they are going. You can see this is still early on. There's no glowing pots, so it's definitely not hot enough. We had a rain scare, but thankfully I had a chunk of I-beam from an architectural job site that I've been working on, and that was able to kind of bridge over the top, and you saw how hot it was. It was evaporating really fast, so I definitely don't want to touch that when I pull the lid off of this bisque fire. So I use a laser infrared thermometer rather than a thermocouple, which might be something that I upgrade to down the road, but for now it works really great, and you're able to roast marshmallows over this. I do not recommend roasting your marshmallows over clay, especially if it's glazed, which this was not, because I don't know what's coming off of those, but it was fun and I didn't die, I promise. And the marshmallows cooked so crazy fast, which goes to how hot this is. But we are going to be trying something today that's a little bit nasty. If you've heard of horsehair pottery, we are going to try some human hair pottery and see how it works. So very first thing, I made sure to load all the parts that I wanted to just burn here at the bisque fire on the top so they were easy to get to. And I'm doing some that I just want solid black, so I'm just putting those in my little reduction chamber pot bucket here and just sealing them in with some combustibles. And then I'm going to be doing some of this human hair technique and trying that just on these. So I'm just putting these on the pavers. They haven't cracked the pavers yet, thankfully, but I am just pulling some of that hair across these and seeing how it works. And it actually works almost identically to horsehair. If anything, the lines are slightly finer because, again, the hair is finer coming off of our heads rather than a horsetail, but they come off really well. The patterning is similar, and you get maybe a little bit more detail because of the fine hair lines. And you have to work rather quickly with this. You only have a couple hundred of a degrees range, usually from about 700 or 800 down to about 500 that this works at. If it's hotter, the hair just burns off and it doesn't leave a mark. And if it's cooler, it's not hot enough to actually ignite the hair properly, and it won't leave a mark either. And again, it 100% burns off all of the hair, so there is no actual hair remaining on these pots. That would be gross. It is just breaking it down into the carbon, and the carbon is what is kind of marking up and staining these pots. So a little gross looking, but it burns off and it's gone, and no one would know the difference. Again, you can do this with horsehair, you can do this with feathers. It is a similar effect to what the magazines do here, that just blackens everything when you kind of put it in a chamber. But it's sort of the same thing. It's something that is organic, burning down, breaking down just into the carbon, and that's what sticks to the pottery. So here's how some of those turned out. They're absolutely stunning, and no one would even know they're made with human hair, that you just kind of grab, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle, keep it out of the waste stream. You could also stick it in a tree and let the birds make a nest out of it, but this was an inventive idea, we thought. So after the remaining pots in the bottom layer of that Bisque Fire have cooled down fully, I'm able to glaze them. I'm using this black one that is supposed to be an oil slick. It's a Raku glaze, so it's a reducing, it should be kind of a rainbow iridescent color when it is fired and put into a reducing atmosphere to cool. And then the white is just kind of a basic white crackle that's pretty standard in Raku pottery. Also, I'm putting one of the ones that I use the human hair on, I'm putting that back in there just to show that I can fully burn off that powdering if I don't like it. Just kind of refire it. All the carbon burns off, and you can either do it again or just take it out and glaze it, whatever. So this has come up to temperature, and I'm just putting these with some organics in little sealed pots and buckets and whatnot. You want to block out oxygen so that the fire burns off all the oxygen in there, kind of let it burp just to make sure it gets all pockets of oxygen. And by removing the oxygen from that atmosphere, you're able to get some really cool effects that with these Raku glazes, that's kind of specific to Raku glazes because they have like lots of metals in them, and they reduce and make these cool iridescent colors. Or with the white, as it cools down, the white should shatter, and then all of the little cracks should kind of blacken. I am still new to this, so I did not actually get the kiln up as high as I believe that I wanted. Some of these glazes were underfired, but some of them weren't. So within the same shelf, some of the glazes didn't quite do what they were going to do. And this is me doing that horsehair technique again on that pot, and you can see it burnt off entirely, and I'm redoing it this time with actual horsehair, so it turned out nicely. So as I mentioned, a couple of the glazes are a bit underfired, but honestly I sort of like how some of them turned out. Like this one should be that metallic, but I actually absolutely love the rainbowiness of it, even though it didn't get the kind of glossy metallic. So some of these I might not even refire, though I could. And I was trying something, I've heard of using ash in your glaze to kind of get some coloring and some fun stuff. So I put ash on a couple of these, and it didn't actually mix with the glaze well, and it didn't have the effect I wanted. So we didn't go into that much, but I tried it and it didn't work, and that's sort of how pottery is a lot of the times. Some of it just kind of doesn't do what you expect it to, and it's trial and error, and honestly, that's part of the fun of it. This white keeps getting the carbon trapped in it, so I need to do some research on why this crackle is kind of being stained by the carbonizing rather than like cutting into the pattern and making beautiful crackle marks. But as you can see, even though these are underfired, the black ones are underfired, they came out with these beautiful rainbow colors because of that reduction atmosphere, and I'm actually super thrilled with them, so I don't think that I will refire them, even though I could refire, get it up to a higher temperature, and hopefully get it to a oil slick look. I'm actually super happy with these little mushroom guys. I made 6 of them. One of them broke in the kiln because I hadn't like attached it very well, but I actually really love how they turned out, and they're super adorable. And now this is how the oil slick is supposed to turn out. So this was on the same shelf as everything else, and it went metallic where every other pot in that shelf didn't. So I'm not sure why that part of the shelf was slightly hotter, and it did get to the metallic kind of glossy look that we were looking for. But I'm super happy with this firing. Even though some of these are matte, I actually absolutely love the little cats and the kind of matte rainbow look. Super happy with a bunch of these. I wanted a bunch of little guys that I can put on my craft fair table. And here's that last horsehair one that I did in the second firing. I think I put the horsehair on while it was still a tiny bit hot because some of the patterning did burn off, unfortunately. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. Click the little bell if you want to get notified, and see y'all next time. Bye!